It is the most unusual college in the country. It meets once every 4 years. It has no campus. Certainly there is no football team. And yet, if you're number one in your class in this college, you don't have to worry about employment for the next 4 years. It is the Electoral College, a collection of electors who decide ultimately the presidential race. The plain fact is that the founding fathers set up this way of choosing a president because, according to scholars, they did not fully trust the judgment of the people. They wanted an assembly of wise men to act as a buffer. But the system also sets up the possibility that a candidate can win the popular vote in this country and still lose the electoral vote. The electors are chosen in each state. The candidate who wins each state also wins that state's electoral votes. The bigger the state, of course, the more electoral votes. So it is possible that a candidate can pile up a lot of popular votes with big margins in smaller states with fewer electoral votes, while his opponent gets just enough popular votes to win the big states with a lot of electoral votes, and thus that candidate, although losing the popular vote, wins the Electoral College. This has happened 3 times in our history, the last time in 1888. All of this explains as well why President Ford and Jimmy Carter have been campaigning so frantically in the big states during the final hours of the campaign. Because, after all, that's where the crucial electoral votes are. Each state has as many electoral votes as it has senators and congressmen. The 9 biggest states, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, and Florida, have a total of 245 electoral votes, only 25 short of the 270 electoral votes needed to win. Well, with us on this election morning is an expert on the Electoral College. His name is Lawrence Longley, a professor of government at Lawrence University, which is in Appleton, Wisconsin. A lot of alliteration there, Dr. Longley, but nice to have you with us this morning. First of all, how does it work? How are electors chosen, and when do they meet to ultimately decide the presidency?
Well, the electors are nominated by the various state political parties. But of course, which electors will serve the Democrat or the Republican slate is determined by the winner-take-all result in the state election. So whatever candidate has the greatest number of popular votes in that state, that entire slate of electors serves then, and then meet in December for the purpose of actually electing the president.
In a hypothetical way only, let's talk about this election and what could happen here today. Say Jimmy Carter wins by very large margins throughout the South. And in the Northeast, in the large areas of the Midwest as well, Illinois and Ohio, it is a very close contest, but President Ford ultimately gets maybe only 12 more votes in Ohio. But he wins all of the electoral votes then in Ohio, does he not?
That's right. And that kind of situation, then of course you would have a divided verdict, with one candidate having the greatest number of popular votes and the other candidate having the majority of the Electoral College. And I think that this is a very real possibility on this election. In fact, some studies have concluded that in an election as close as this one appears to be, there's no better than an even chance that the candidate who has the greatest number of popular votes will also be the candidate who wins the election. One of the curious features of our Electoral College.
Then there's also the real possibility that when the Electoral College meets, the electors will not necessarily vote for the candidate that won their state, because they're not bound to, are they?
That's quite true. The Constitution provides that the electors shall vote. And that language seemed to be interpreted by most legal scholars as meaning they are free to vote as they wish to. As a matter of fact, in 4 of the last 5 presidential elections, at least one individual has cast a vote contrary to the expectations of those that voted for him. Now, this has not been important in any of the recent elections, but what concerns me is that the possibility of a very close election, both in the popular vote and in the electoral vote totals, that 1 or 2 individuals might deviate from their expectations because of some wish for personal publicity or some attention to some particular cause they are concerned with.
Originally, the Founding Fathers, I suppose, to serve their own egos, thought as well that it would be a collection of wise men. But the electors, while decent citizens, all have not necessarily been the most distinguished citizens in the land.
No, they haven't been. As a matter of fact, the Electoral College has not been this kind of collection of wise and learned elders, but rather today is largely a state-by-state assembly of political hacks and fat cats.
You were an elector yourself at one time.
I was a Democratic elector in Wisconsin in 1972. I might add that not more than about 50 people in the entire state of Wisconsin probably knew that they were voting for me when they actually cast a vote for the Democratic presidential ticket of that year. I might also add that I lost in that particular Nixon landslide.
Dr. Longley, thank you very much. Everyone will be keeping their eye firmly fixed on those electoral votes tonight and then on the Electoral College, because this could truly be an historic year. Time now for a station break.